In the last video, I talked about what happens when a role changes. How sometimes we find ourselves asking a question we never expected to ask. Who am I now? And as I thought more about that question, I've realized that there's another question hiding underneath it. Why is it so hard for us to see our own value? I once had a conversation with a young man about that very thing. He struggled whenever people thanked him for what he had done. Not because he was arrogant, and definitely not because he was rude. He genuinely didn't understand why people were making such a big deal out of what he had done. To him, it wasn't a big deal. It just came naturally. And as he talked, I realized I understood exactly what he meant. Mostly because I wrestled with the exact same thing my entire life. I've always been good with computers. People would bring me problems. I'd look at them for a few minutes, and I typically would have it figured out. Sometimes the solution felt obvious. So when people thanked me, my reaction was usually, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. But then I started noticing something. What felt easy to me wasn't easy for them. What took me 5 minutes might have taken them 5 hours, or even 5 days. Or maybe they would have never figured it out on their own anyway. And eventually I noticed this pattern. Every time something felt easy to me, I assumed it didn't have that much value. And that forced me to confront something. Maybe I'm measuring value the wrong way. I think some of us believe something without ever saying it out loud. We actually believe that value comes from effort. If it was difficult, it must be valuable. If it was easy, it isn't. But life kept giving me evidence that didn't fit that equation. I remember I had built a deck. It took months. There was planning, measuring, learning, and then finally building it. And when it was finally finished, I felt this enormous sense of accomplishment because I could look at it and see all the effort that went into it. Then later, I helped someone out with their deck. And somehow, it just didn't feel as valuable, even though it probably saved him months of learning and planning. Not because it wasn't helpful, but because I had already learned the lessons. The struggle itself was gone. What had taken months the first time felt almost natural the second time. And that's when it hit me. The value wasn't in the struggle. The struggle created the value for me. All those months of learning, all the planning, all the physical labor, all of that was still there. They simply became something I just know how to do. And I think that's true for many of us. The things we're best at often feel ordinary to us. Not because they're ordinary, but because we carried them for so long. We see the ease, but other people experience the impact. And maybe that's why accepting a compliment can be so uncomfortable, because we're looking at the effort. They're looking at the difference that it made. And maybe the real question isn't, was it hard? Maybe the question is, did it help? Because they are not the same thing. And that realization led me to another question I wasn't expecting. If it's this hard for me to see my own value, why does it hurt so much when other people can't see my value?